The B-24 Liberator clears the Willow Run runway with a sound like the sky tearing in half. Della Mae Harkins doesn't look up. She stood outside this trailer enough times to know the sound by heart. It is January 1943. Her homemade wooden travel trailer, 18 feet of pine frame and painted plywood, sits in row 4 of the Willow Run trailer camp, a city of strangers built overnight in the Michigan mud. The trailer lists slightly to the left on its single axle. Della knows this. Oh, she built it herself back in Harlan County, Kentucky with a borrowed level and her father-in-law's hand tools. But that story begins 6 months back in a different state before the war had a face, before she understood what it would take to keep her children fed inside something she had made with her own hands. Harlan County, Kentucky, June 1942. The coal seams were running thin and the men were going to war one by one until the hollows went silent. Charlie Harkins had shipped out in January. Della was 29 with 2 children and a farmhouse she couldn't keep warm on what the local canning plant paid. Then a neighbor came back from Michigan with money she had never seen before. Ford was paying women at the Willow Run bomber plant. Real wages, the neighbor said, but there was no housing within 15 miles of the plant, and what existed cost more than she could earn. She talked to old Clem Harkins, Charlie's father, who had spent 30 years building coal camp houses. They pulled out plans for a pull trailer from a 1940 issue of Popular Mechanics and spread them on the kitchen table. 6 weeks they worked in the yard, pine framing, quarter-inch plywood sheeting, tar paper on the roof. 18 feet of living space on a single-axle Clem salvage from a worn-out farm wagon. Della painted it a dusty gray-green, the only color Clem had in the barn. She caulked every seam twice. She wasn't building a vacation trailer, she was building a home that could move. August 14th, 1942. She loaded Roy, 8, and Irene, 5, into the back seat of the 1939 Ford 5.8, hitched the trailer at dawn, said goodbye to Clem at the end of the dirt road, 600 miles north through Cincinnati into the flat Ohio farmland. The 1939 Ford 5.8 pulled hard on the upgrades. The trailer swayed on the 2-lane, but held. Everything she owned rolling north behind her. If you want to see where Della Mae and her trailer end up from here, here's what I ask. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange. Your way of saying this story reached you. Hit subscribe if it did, drop a like if it moved you, and tell us in the comments what this road means to you. It helps us keep telling stories like this. Back to Della Mae and her trailer. Willow Run appeared before she expected it. A mile-long factory building sitting on the Michigan plain like something dropped from another world. Steam, smoke, and the sound of metal striking metal day and night. The trailer camp was a mud field with electric hookups and standpipes. It had nearly 200 trailers in rows, store-bought covered wagons beside hand-built wooden boxes like hers. She found row 4 and didn't move for 2 days. She paid $3.50 a week for the space. That included electricity and use of the laundry room. Roy carried the welcome letter from the Federal Public Housing Authority like a trophy. The interior was tight, but she had made it work. 2 bunks at one end for the children, a folding table, a 2-burner camp stove, and a cot for herself behind a curtain. She started the day shift on September 8, 1942. Her job, riveting aft fuselage sections of the B-24 Liberator. She had never held a rivet gun before. By noon, she could keep pace with the line. The work was loud, cold, and precise. The factory floor stretched so far she sometimes lost her bearings between the tail section and the wing jigs. A mile of machinery, and she was one rivet in it. She came home to the trailer at 4 in the afternoon, smelling of machine oil and aluminum shavings. Roy had a fire going in the camp stove. So Irene had made sandwiches from white bread and government peanut butter. The trailer camp had its own rhythm. A jukebox ran in the utility building until 10. Laundry lines strung between trailers held work clothes and children's overalls in every color. It felt sometimes like a town. Their neighbor Ruthie Stallard from Arkansas had a 2-year-old and a husband on a destroyer somewhere in the Atlantic. She and Della shared childcare on alternating shifts, passing a single pair of good boots between them. Michigan winter arrived without warning. Some of the pine walls were thin as a promise. Della stuffed old coats along the wheel well, nailed tar paper to the roof panel from inside, and still woke to ice on the window glass. The children adapted faster than she did. Roy built a sled from scrap plywood behind the utility building. Irene made friends with every child in the camp within a week, as if home had never been a place. In February 1943, a letter arrived from the Navy. Charlie had been wounded in the Solomon Islands. Shrapnel, they said, not fatal. He was recovering in Noumea. She read the letter 3 times in the cold. She folded the letter and put it in the cigar box where she kept Roy's first tooth and Irene's baby curl. Then she went to work. The line didn't stop for Navy letters. By spring 1943, she had moved to the swing shift, more pay. The plant was finally running right, and the foreman told her crew they were riveting wings faster than anyone else in the building. The trailer was showing wear. The tar paper seams had crept apart over winter, and a soft spot had developed near the rear axle. She repaired it on a Sunday with a scavenged sheet of plywood. The 1939 Ford 5.8 that had towed her north needed new brake shoes. A mechanic 2 rows over handled the job and charged her in cigarettes and apple pie. Everyone paid what they had. The camp had softened across a year. Gardens appeared in front of trailers. A minister held Sunday services between 2 units. A baseball game ran every Saturday by the drainage ditch. Nobody had planned any of it. Della had become, without meaning to, an anchor for the women in row 4. She kept a pot of bean soup on the stove and never turned anyone away from the door, no matter the hour. A new family arrived in April 1943. The Porters from Harlan County pulled to Willow Run by the same rumor that had brought her. Their trailer was a commercial covered wagon model, bright red, better insulated than hers. The husband, Raymond Porter, recognized Della from a church picnic in Harlan County 3 years back. They ate supper together that night. It was the closest to home she had felt in almost a year. Summer 1943. The plant found its stride. Our B-24s were leaving the line faster than any schedule had projected. On the floor, Della could feel the change, something like pride settling into the weight of the work. The trailer smelled different in summer than winter, canvas and pine sap and the flat heat of Michigan farmland. She propped the rear window open with a stick and slept with Roy's drawings taped above her cot. In October 1943, the thousandth Liberator rolled out of Willow Run. The whole plant stopped for 10 minutes. Workers stood on the assembly floor and some of them wept. Della clapped until her palms were sore. Charlie's second letter arrived in November. He was stateside now, recovering in Georgia. Wounded again, the same shoulder. He'd be home through winter, maybe longer. She read that word, longer, 4 times. She got Charlie on the phone for 7 minutes through the camp office. He asked about the children. She told him about the trailer. He asked if it was warm enough. Georgia was in his voice, slow and open. She told him the trailer was warm enough. She lied a little. The floor was still cold in the mornings and the stove burned through fuel faster than the ration allowed. But the trailer was standing. So were they. By early 1944, production at Willow Run had reached a pace once thought impossible. A B-24 Liberator left the line every 63 minutes around the clock. She felt the weight of that in her chest every shift. In August 1944, Willow Run set a production record, 428 bombers in a single month. Della's team riveted through every shift of it. 2 women per gun, no break longer than 15 minutes. Roy turned 10 that August. Della baked a cake on the 2-burner stove and invited every child in the row. The trailer was too small for all of them and nobody cared. They ate on the grass outside. Charlie came through Ypsilanti in November 1944 on his way to Fort Meade. He spent 2 days in the trailer, slept on her cot. They barely talked, but she watched him breathe at night, memorizing the sound. Then he was gone again. The trailer was smaller after. She pushed the rear curtain back and let the bunk stay unmade for a week. The stove needed tending. Eventually, she tended it. Spring 1945. The plant began releasing workers as the war wound toward its end. Della stayed on until June. Production at Willow Run ended officially on June 28, 1945. The last B-24 rolled out to a quiet airfield. She stood at the fence and watched it taxi away. 8,685 bombers had come out of this one building. Some had gone to places where Charlie had been. VJ Day came in August. Charlie was discharged that September, 3 years after she had pulled out of the hollow in Kentucky. He found her by the trailer in row 4, thinner than she remembered him. He asked if she wanted to go home. She looked at the trailer. The gray-green paint faded nearly to white. The floor patched twice. The axle rusted at the bracket. She thought about that word, home. They stayed in Michigan, rented a house in Ypsilanti the following spring. The trailer was pushed to the back of the lot, its hitch resting on a cinder block. Roy used it as a fort for 2 more years. The pine walls finally gave way in the winter of 1948. Rotted at the sill, the roof sagging, the gray-green paint bleached to nothing. The trailer was gone. What it had carried never was. If this story stayed with you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep finding these roads and telling the stories left on them. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Oh, this is Old Camper Stories USA.